Forerunner 970 is an evolution of the 965 and in many ways comes very close to Fenix 8. So how do I feel after switching from the Fenix 8 to the Forerunner 970? Let's dive in. For many of you, this change might come as a surprise, but before you start expressing your opinion, I would like to give you a bit of context behind my decision. This isn't going to be a standard review of the Forerunner 970, it's more of a casual chat about my impressions. Fenix 8 was my daily watch for a full year. At first, right after launch, it had a few typical early bugs, but over time I really had nothing major to complain about. Honestly, I would probably still be using it, if not for the one incident. During a run, I took a fall, and for the first time I got to see Garmin's incident detection system in action, because I never had the reason to test it before. Unfortunately, the watch got scratched when I fell, and I just couldn't feel the same way about it. And even though it wasn't seriously damaged, I knew that if I didn't decide to sell it now, the scratch, along with a few more weeks of use, would mean a noticeably lower resale value, so I decided to let it go. Maybe it was for the best. First of all, a year with one watch is actually a long time for me, and second, I already had a solid alternative in mind, the Forerunner 970. Let's start with the design. I will be honest, if Garmin hadn't released the Forerunner 970 in the indigo grey colorway, I probably wouldn't have bought it at all. Right now I have a different strap on, not the one from the original set. Normally the strap matches the case color and has purple accents. In my opinion, this version will especially appeal to women. The color is very similar to that of the gold version of Fenix, mostly thanks to the golden titanium bezel, although the case itself is a bit darker. You might ask, why didn't you go for the Fenix 8 Pro? Well, there is no 43mm version of the Fenix Pro, and for me ergonomics really matter. And that brings us to the key point, comfort. The weight difference between my Fenix 8 43mm and Forerunner 970 is just about 4 grams in favor of the Forerunner, but the Forerunner seems to be lighter on the wrist. And when comparing the 47mm Fenix 8 to Forerunner 970, the difference becomes even more noticeable. The Fenix 8 is also thicker, and you really feel that on your wrist. Honestly, the Forerunner 970 is one of the most comfortable watches I've ever had. Of course, it's also worth considering the build quality. The Fenix has more metal components, giving the watch a more solid and durable feel. Both models have sapphire glass, but they differ in construction. The Fenix glass is flat and slightly recessed under the bezel, providing extra protection. On the Forerunner 970, the glass sits almost flush with the bezel, which looks more modern, but might be a bit more prone to scratches. The buttons on these watches also differ. The Fenix has inductive buttons with a distinctive haptic feedback. They are additionally sealed, partly due to the diving functions available on the Fenix, which you won't find on the Forerunner. Sure, the Forerunner 970 offers a snorkeling mode, but scuba diving with aqualung isn't supported. The Fenix 8 has 10 atmosphere water resistance rating, while Forerunner 970 is rated for 5 atmosphere. On the other hand, the Forerunner 970 has classic physical buttons with springly click. Honestly, in everyday use, I prefer this. They are more intuitive and provide greater confidence when navigating the watch. And one more thing, the watch bands. The Fenix comes with the quick fix system right out of the box, super easy and convenient to remove and swap bands, literally in just a few seconds. With the Forerunner 970, well, it's not that simple. You either need a special tool, or if you are skilled, just a thin knife will do. Seriously, a watch that costs over €750 and no quick release system for straps? I get that quick fit might be reserved for the Fenix line, but at least a standard quick release would be nice. But it's not impossible to fit quick fit bands. In fact, I ordered some, and once they arrive, I will just remove the springs bars and fit them in the same way as with the Fenix 8. And another thing, strap length. I appreciate that Garmin includes an extra keeper loop so that the straps doesn't stick out, but honestly, brands like, for example, Polar includes 2 strap sizes in the box, which would be a better solution overall. What immediately hit me after switching to the Forerunner was the larger display, but what really stood out was the brightness, even at standard medium brightness settings. The screen is serious, very bright. That's definitely one of the biggest upgrades over the Fenix 8. Battery life is another noticeable difference. The 43 Fenix 8 was a bit of compromise here, especially with always-on display enable. In that mode, the battery lasted me around 3 to 4 days, depending on how many workouts I did. Without always on display, I got around 6 to 7 days, again depending on the amount and length of workouts. As for the Forerunner 970, here's how it breaks down. Sleep tracking overnight, 1 to 2% battery drain, 1 hour GPS workout, about 4 to 5%, no always on display, no training, around 5% per day, with training 1 hour, without always on display, about 10% per day, with always on display but no training, about 12% per day. And if you're adding training, this working time will of course change depending on the length of the training. However, when it comes to pure GPS battery life, the Fenix series is still better. So if you are training for ultras, long expeditions or endurance races, I would say the Fenix or Enduro is still the better choice. The interface of the new Forerunner 970 is noticeably different as well. If I said in my review of the Fenix 8 that the interface was a little flashy, then what can I say about the Forerunner 970? It's even more colorful, maybe a little too much for my taste. To be honest, I definitely prefer the calmer, more subdued look of the Fenix 8 or Epix Pro. Forerunner 970 feels a little faster than Fenix 8, but it's not perfectly smooth either. There are some noticeable shutters here as well. The controls are very similar to what you get on the Fenix 8. There is both touchscreen and physical buttons, and if you prefer a more traditional experience, the touchscreen can easily be disabled. There are also focus modes, a kind of context-based profile that allows for separate settings depending on the solution, like sleep or activity. For example, you can set the watch to automatically enable Do Not Disturb mode during sleep or block app notifications during workouts. The Forerunner 970 comes with the 32 GB of storage, which means there's plenty of space not just for maps, but also for loading your own music directly onto the watch. That allows you to go for a run without your phone, just pair it with some Bluetooth headphones and you are good to go. There is also Spotify and Deezer integration, weather forecast, sunrise and sunset time, Garmin Pay and smartphone notifications. On Android, you can customize which apps send notifications, and you can even respond using predefined quick replies. The watch supports emojis and even displays images in notifications, but not from all apps. For example, Telegram and WhatsApp images show up, but Messenger doesn't support this feature. I remember mentioning in my Fenix 8 review that even with app notifications turned off during workouts, I still keep getting Telegram messages. Unfortunately, nothing's changed. It's frustrating, especially since I have notification enabled only for SMS or calls. Telegram notifications are still coming in. A new feature in the Forerunner 970 is ability to make and receive phone calls directly from the watch. You can call from your contact list or manually dial a number. However, just like with the Fenix 8, call quality is just good. It's louder than the Fenix 8, but still far from perfect.
Hello.
Again, how do you hear me now?
High pitch and
Okay, because now we are outside.
Your voice is a bit irritating.
Okay, so outside.
Because this have too much high pitch to me.
Okay, so now wait a bit, because now we are outside. Maybe I try to go inside. How do you hear me? Now it's quiet.
Now it's okay.
Now it's okay, but there is something high pitch in my voice or something.
Yes, you have the higher tunes, more sibilance in your voice than usual. And sometimes I have some kind of echo that maybe not all the time, but it happens.
Now we have also voice memos features, and they also played a little louder than in Fenix 8. Voice memo test on Forerunner 970. Voice memo test on Forerunner 970. Additional smart features include voice commands and ability to access your phone's voice assistant directly from the watch. One more new addition in the Forerunner series is a physical flashlight. In previous model, Forerunner 965, there was only a screen-based flashlight. The difference between the two is huge. The physical flashlight is far more practical and significantly more effective. Beyond smart features, the Forerunner 970 offers a set of tools for health and activity monitoring. You will find all-day heart rate tracking, oxygen saturation monitoring, but I personally have this set to on demand, as continuous tracking tends to drain the battery quickly. But lately I left this oxygen measurements tracking on while I slept, and the watch only lost about 2% battery overnight, which is really not bad at all. There are also the usual features like step count, calorie tracking, stress monitoring, and sleep analysis. In sleep analysis, we have something like detection of breathing variations, but for this to work, overnight oxygen measurements monitoring needs to be enabled. You also get nap detection, menstrual cycle tracking. Another new feature is the ECG, which you can even export as PDF if you want to share the data with your doctor. Something else worth noting, the evening report. A new feature that's available not just on Forerunner 970 but also made its way to Fenix 8 series through a software update. It acts as a kind of end of a day summary. In evening report you will see info like estimated sleep need, weather forecast and more. Of course, both reports are customizable to fit your preferences. And one more thing, there is something like calculator. I don't recall seeing it in previous Garmin models, so either it's new addition or I just missed it before. And now sports features. Most of the metrics available in Fenix 8 can also be found in Forerunner 970, including heart rate variability, current training load, and related metrics like training status and training readiness. Additionally, you get tools like hill score, recovery status, and running and cycling performance. There is also a new feature such as running tolerance, a metric that shows how much training load your body can safely handle in a given week to help avoid injury. The watch also evaluates the impact of the run on your body and converts the covered distance into a flat ground equivalent. For example, if you run 5 kilometers with lots of hills, it may be equivalent to 7 kilometers on flat ground in terms of muscular effort. This value updates every 7 days and helps you keep track on how close you are to overtraining. Another new feature is running economy, which shows how efficiently you move while running. But to access to this data, you will need a specific chest strap. In addition, in Garmin Coach, triathlon training plans have been added. Just like on Fenix 8 and Epix Pro, you get separate VO2 max values for running and cycling, but for cycling you will need to connect an external power meter. Personally, I have my Forerunner connected to a heart rate strap and power meter on crank, and during indoor session I will also pair it with the trainer. I used to have it connected to my Trek bike lights, but in the end I prefer to turn those on manually. You can create your own workouts and customize data fields for each activity. As far as I remember, you can have up to 8 data fields per screen, and I definitely use that in road cycling, where cadence and power meter are essential. Some of my favorite features are also here, like resume later, which I absolutely love in Garmin watches, and touchscreen lock during activities. One of the newer features is projected race time. It works when you add a race to your calendar. It estimated your projected finish time with a range, assuming you continue training as you are now. In addition, on the race day, if you forget to hit the stop button at the finish line, the suggested finish line feature can suggest trimming the activity to the actual finish line. But you have to load the course onto the watch beforehand. Another cool feature is auto lap by timing gates. This helps correct the GPS by adjusting split times to official road markers. You can enable this option when creating a course in Garmin Connect. When it comes to the heart rate sensor, the Garmin Forerunner 970 uses the 5th generation sensor, the same as the Fenix 8. I honestly don't have much to complain about here. And to be fair, the same went to the Fenix 8. Of course, whether the heart rate sensor works well for you depends on many factors. Most of the time, for both running and cycling, I use the external heart rate monitor, so I'm not too focused on how perfect the wrist sensor is. Regarding GPS, it's identical to the Fenix 8 with multi-band GPS support and very good accuracy. The Forerunner 970, just like Fenix 8, offers full map support. All the features you will find in the Fenix 8 are here too. You have access to all your saved courses, you can return to the start point, navigate to specific point on the map, or use ground trip routing course. They are turn-by-turn notifications, both sounds and vibrations, and an arrow appears on screen when you are approaching a turn or heading off tracks. One detail worth noting: when using ground trip routing course, the arrow on screen is much smaller, which makes it harder to read while running. One other complaint: map loading is still fairly slow. On the other hand, I don't know another watch that offers such detailed maps, with street names, racetracks, restaurants, and so on. Finally, a few words about error and bugs. I got the Fenix 8 practically right after launch, and honestly, the number of bugs and the start was huge. I bought Forerunner 970 about 4 months after its release, and that timing made a big difference. The major software update for Forerunner 970, version 12.7, fixed a lot of issues. My unit is running version 12.72, and aside from heavily battery drain at first, which was solved with a soft reset, and one-time situation where the watch completely disconnected from the phone during a call. At one point, the call I was making through the watch suddenly transferred to the phone, which completely surprised me. At first, I thought that maybe I had accidentally clicked something and redirected the call manually, because you can actually do that during a call. But it turned out that the watch had completely lost connection with the phone. I had to perform a soft reset to get everything back to normal. For comparison, my Fenix 8 used to randomly restart during a call or while saving an activity, thankfully never during the activity itself. The issues mostly occurred at the very beginning of my time with the watch. Later on, things stabilized and I didn't experience any more major problems. So, to sum up, do I regret switching to the Forerunner 970 after selling my Fenix 8 43mm? No, I think I made the right decision because I had my eye on the Forerunner 970 ever since it was released. Although I think that if I hadn't scratched my Fenix 8, I wouldn't have decided to make this change. For me, the Fenix is still the best equipped and most attractive watch in Garmin's range. And I know that I will return to the Fenix in the future, but maybe not yet. The Forerunner 970 is a really interesting hybrid. On one hand, it's a lightweight sports watch, but on the other, it actually looks pretty stylish. The smaller bezel, lower weight, and overall comfort makes it a great option for people who maybe found the Fenix 8 47mm a bit too bulky or heavy. I also love that they added a built-in flashlight. That's something a lot of users had been asking for. The brighter display is a big plus too, especially when swimming indoors or just for everyday readability in the sun. And the sapphire glass makes it more scratch resistant, which is great. To be fair, the differences between the Forerunner 970 and Fenix 8 are getting smaller. At this point, the decision might come down more to personal preferences like comfort, looks, or battery life, rather than features. Especially since a lot of the new features from the Forerunner 970, like running economy or running tolerance, are either already available or will be added to the Fenix 8 as well, since it's still Garmin's flagship. So in the end, if you care more about durability, advanced diving features and longer battery life, the Fenix 8 is probably the better choice. But if you want something lighter and still packed with high-end features, especially for running, then Forerunner 970 might be perfect for you. Thanks so much for watching. Let me know in the comments which watch would you choose, the Fenix 8 or Forerunner 970. And if you enjoyed the video, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe. It really helps the channel. And see you next time.